Very, very good start, I believe, as we go through turn number 1 right now. Pushes himself through into V2 because he's got the inside line. He's world champion, Finali Mondiali champion. Hello everyone, welcome to Finali Mondiali 2024. With our qualifying about to get underway for our Shell Am drivers. All the championships are done and dusted. Now it's who will become the world champion. This is where we are then, the Imola circuit. It forms the host to the final rounds of our championships, which are done and dusted. And of course for the Finali Mondiali, which is something so special indeed. I cannot tell you enough about what a place this is. So there is the Imola circuit. Now, as part of the huge Ferrari show that will be on its way, the Imola circuit will play host to the Finali Mondiali races across all categories. 21 turns, challenging our drivers as they have done, and there's so many analogies and metaphors that I could use there as the duck finds conditions to his or her liking in Italy at the moment alongside Nico Spalek. It's damp.
It's damp. This is not the track, but it might be in some parts. There you can see the track is decidedly wet. No chance for any slicks being used today, and I think it's fair to say also not tomorrow, but the drivers have experience in these conditions. It has been wet for the most of the week, so all set.
Tomorrow it is the huge Finali Mondiali day, which starts with an extraordinary show. And this year the parade is starting in the city itself, as you can see, Piazza Antonio Gramsci, and then through the Dante Alighieri. And this is the way the parade winds its way through the city of Imola, making its way to the fabled Autodromo Enzo Indino Ferrari. So that gives the opportunity for you to join the parade and be there and witness the fantastic start of the now world famous Ferrari show that forms something huge across the Finali Mondiali week. I was going to say weekend. It's more than a weekend. It is a week. Now, the color codes that you can see there, red for Europe, blue for North America. The reason being, this is qualifying for our Finali Mondiali race, our world final race, non-championship race, as to who will be the best in the world. So we put the top drivers from Europe and the top drivers from North America all together in this qualifying session of 25 minutes to ascertain, number one, who will be qualifying where to a point, because we also have Nico Spalek, a thing called Super Pole.
Indeed, and that will come up later today, as you could just see some slick tires in the foreground, which are decidedly not being used.
Necessary.
A minute from now, this session will get underway, and for those drivers positioned 7 through 26, wherever they finish in this session is going to be where they will line up for the race later on. However 1 through 6, different story.
They will fight it out for the pole position. That's why we have this competition called Super Pole a little bit later on today. So the first target, I would suggest, Nico, for all the drivers, and there are 26 of them that will be out there. I remind you, a mix of European and North American drivers. Their first target will be to get into that Super Pole category, so they need to be the top 6 in qualifying in this session.
Absolutely. So whether you're P1, P6, kind of academic for later on. This qualifying session only 25 minutes long, so a little bit of a deviation from a normal format, so 5 minutes longer. The Super Pole later on will be even more short and defined.
I love it.
I love the showbiz
element of it.
Absolutely, and we are green.
Yes, we're green as the cars make their way out onto the track. Then Roland Hurtner, Zoe Skrimpias, Andrea Levy are the first three drivers to make their way onto the track. Also making his way onto the track, Nico, is Shintaro Akatsu. And Shintaro came and found me earlier on because he wanted to introduce 50% of the broadcast partnership to his family, who monitor Shintaro's progress in Ferrari Challenge races remotely, but have the displeasure of having to listen to us. So they were suitably disappointed in meeting me. I'm sure they will be enhanced when they meet you. But naturally, you weren't available at that point. Autograph signing, you know. Right, 25 minutes on the clock, and the first minute of those is gone already. As I mentioned, some 26 cars. The best of our Shell Am drivers from Europe and also from North America, including, may I say, the champions, of course. The Ferrari Challenge Europe Coppa Shell Am champion is Zoe Skrimpias, and the North America champion, crowned yesterday, Roger Monteforte.
Absolutely, and very proud on the podium. Did not only take the championship, but he also got the race win yesterday, so
yes,
in a strong vein of form. Zoe Skrimpias, new to racing, new to the Ferrari Challenge in 2024, has shown an incredible amount of maturity, consistency. It has to be said, towards the end of the season, especially in Imola, it hasn't gone his way entirely. He hasn't had a win here, and that means he has to regain some of the form if he wants to be at the top of this qualifying session of the race later on.
And for Zois, it would be the perfect ending, wouldn't it, to become world champion as well, to take that Finali Mondiali. I mean, I cannot tell you how much pride is attached to the title of world champion, to take the Finali Mondiali race. That, yeah, with the championship all done and dusted, as we look at the 127 car of Norikatsu Shibata for Corner Sasoka, joining us here in Imola and trying to thread his way through these really rather hideous conditions, as is Andrea Levy. We can just see through on the picture. And just as I was talking about Andrea Levy, I regret to say, and in avoidance Zoe Skrimpias, those two drivers skate across the track and the grass as well. We have a red flag, which I regret to say is the only solution, and unfortunately that brings this session to a premature suspension, early suspension, because the grip levels were clearly very difficult. It was Andrea Levy first of all. Here we can see it again, just losing the back end of the car, and once you're on the grass you actually start accelerating, because and Zoe Skrimpias, it was just a reaction, Nico, to the spinning Andreas Koenig car. And he too finding the barriers as well. So that brings out the red flag. Neither of the cars have sustained ridiculous damage, I don't think, but it has meant that the session has been suspended before really we got a time put on the board. So the clock gets stopped at 22:08, and there you can see Andrea Levy manages to get the car pointing in the right direction again. Some damage to the rear wing. I can note it looks misshapen. So, yeah, whether he will be able to continue, only time will tell. Steve Cech in the 424 car, the Ferrari of Rancho Mirage driver. That is the gold and black car that we're looking at there. Steve Cech, then part of the North America contingent, and a fine driver. And this Finali Mondiali event, qualifying for it is so important. I have to say, Nico, in terms of the best that we are able to do with regards to the forecast for the weekend, I think it's supposed to be damp both today and tomorrow. And there you can see the car of Paul Lynn, or you could see the Ferrari of Newport Beach driver Paul Lynn. Broly's definitely needed, I regret to say. I think I'm right in saying that it is predicted to be damp both today and tomorrow.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct, and a little bit unlucky for our Coppa Shell Am drivers. It has been wet all day and overnight. it hasn't been raining quite as much as it did right now at the beginning of the session for the majority of the morning. So a little bit of a bad timing here, because like an hour ago would have been no problem to run this qualifying. Right now I think the conditions really are not looking like things will improve dramatically in a short order.
No,
So
I agree with you.
race control obviously will have a look at what's there, what is expected. Obviously a weather radar is certainly part of the wall of screens that they have in front of them. And
You're right. So Paul Lynn there, as I mentioned, he was on the podium yesterday in his race, and Paul, a North America competitor. And yeah, all the cars brought back into the pit lane. And there is Andrea Levy bringing his car back to the pit lane. I said earlier on I felt the rear wing was misshapen, and I still maintain that. I think to the right-hand side you can see the gap there is bigger from the back end, and you can see Roland Hurtner into the pit lane as well. So 26 cars across this qualifying session, and Josef Schumacher, one of the more colourful of the 296 Challenge cars, that's for sure.
doesn't get any more colorful than that, I would argue.
No, I would think I would agree with that.
And a very colorful and enigmatic character he is as well.
Louis Perusquia, who has raced in Europe this year and raced in North America, as well as is often been the case with Louis, the Rosso Corsa racer, is actually in this qualifying session as a European driver, because he has contested the entire season, and Louis' qualifying session, like all the other drivers, has been suspended for the moment. This is Coppa and Finali Mondiali qualifying. I remind you that the top 6 from this session go through to our Super Bowl competition, as Gabe Harib for Ferrari of Atlanta in the 402 car. Red flag brought out as a consequence of both Zoe Skrimpias and Andrea Levy finding the barriers. Gabe Harib, as I mentioned, from Ferrari of Atlanta. I want to shout out to Webb and Craig from the Ferrari of Atlanta organization, who are ever present in the paddocks. And there you can see our hard-working volunteer team, without whom, and Zoe Skrimpias has picked up some damage, Nico. The back end of the car, you can see, is sliding a little bit. Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to the volunteers that enable us to enjoy our sport of motor racing. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So big thank you in weather conditions that are not very nice for them, let alone us. Start delayed due to weather conditions, which I'm not surprised by that, honestly.
No.
We have no further information on our messaging screen as to when the start will be rescheduled for, but at the moment the start has been delayed due to the weather conditions.
Yeah, and I dare say, with the weather radar also very much a presence here in our commentary studio, it doesn't really look all that promising over the next few minutes, or dare I say hours. For Zoe Skrimpias and his team, obviously, under the red flag conditions in the pit lane, they can work on the car, so they will certainly see what they can do right now. For Zoe's, obviously, it would be very, very bad if he couldn't get this fixed and have to start from the back of the red.
And the irony is, actually, Nico, that I felt that the Andreas Koenig, the Andrea Levy going into the barrier, I thought that was more damage sustaining, or it looked like it, than Zois, but that's actually not the case, I would say. There is Zoe Skrimpias. So the Ionico Roberta Corsa Ram team will go to work on the Zoe Skrimpias car, and it was just sheer reaction on Zois's part. He could see Andrea Levy going around. He went to avoid, and by avoiding, lost the back end of the car in really, really difficult conditions, and yeah, ended up making contact as well. And as I say, ironically, I think there's potentially more damage to his car than there is to the Andrea Levy car.
For sure, but still, I mean, the speed they were going wasn't immensely high, and they were effectively still on what's almost straight at that point, and that just goes to show how unraceable, unqualifiable the conditions were and are at this stage, because effectively turning in becomes an adventure, and that's not the right moment for any sort of racing, unless you're on a jet ski, but certainly and especially not for a world final. So we will see what we can do and what we can bring you in short order.
Yes, and we await further information from race control as to when the session is likely to restart. They will be monitoring the weather radar, as Nico has indicated, and they will make the decision as Dana Goodwin, the Ferrari of Seattle driver. You could see the graphics of the Dana Goodwin car. Dana, in fact, not in this session. There's Roland Hurtner. Now, can mention that in similar weather conditions yesterday, although it had stopped raining and the track was beginning to dry, Roland Hurtner was one of the drivers that gambled on running slick tyres very bravely on a damp track, and it almost came good for him. Didn't quite, because it wasn't until the sort of final 5 minutes of the race where the track really was drying up. So Roland Hurtner and Eric Chung didn't have the ding-dong battle in race 2 that we expected, because Roland went backwards at the beginning of the race by dint of being on the slick tyres, whereas Eric Chung, who was on wet weather tyres, was able to be victorious.
There, and you can see one of the cars going around. That is effectively a reconnaissance mission from race control, trying to establish what's going on, how are the conditions.
I think it's eased, Nico.
I hope you're right.
I think it has.
Let's see. We have a restart delayed due to weather conditions still on our screen, and of course, race control wants the drivers to be able to show their ability, wants the cars to be out there, but the main concern always is safety, and there you have it on the screen. Obviously, we will monitor the situation, race control will monitor the situation, and we will leave you with these rainy pictures for the time being, and come back, that's a guarantee, as soon as we can go back to qualifying. Thanks for the moment, and we will be back soon.
Welcome back to Imola and to Finali Mondiali qualifying as we look at the Hassan Dabusi car. And a short suspension to the qualifying session due to pretty torrid weather conditions. We look at the Paolo Scudieri car now, and there's Eric Chung as the car's now making the way out of the pit lane, or getting towards the end of the pit lane, ready for this session to restart. A temporary suspension brought about by Andrea Levy and Zoe Scrimpias finding the barriers, but we think the damage sustained by both cars is repairable, and hopefully they'll be able to get back out into qualifying again. And there we can see the 124 car of the Scuderia Lebanon driver Talal Shayer, Nico. Talal, who is so confident that he's got his wipers on intermittent mode rather than constant mode. I have to say, I think the weather conditions have improved a tad, in that there's not quite the incessant rain that there was that greeted the drivers for the start of the session as we get a green. And let's go back to qualifying. I remind you, we have the best of our European drivers and North American drivers in this qualifying session. And basically, it's qualifying positions for the Finali Mondiali race that's up for grabs, the world final race. And I also remind you that the top 6 net drivers, whether they're Europeans, whether they're North Americans, or a mix of the two, will be going through to our Super Pole competition this afternoon, which, as the name suggests, is a separate little 10-minute window where the drivers will try and qualify for pole position. Zoe Scrimpias then was one of the drivers that had an off the start of this session, but the Ineco Rapata Corsa Ram team have worked hard, and he's back out again, Nico.
Yeah, that is very good to see, because he, among the two who we saw clatter into the barriers, his car certainly looked more worse for wear after that. Something looked like it had broken on the suspension or something, but it looks like the car is now handling as well as it can be under these conditions. So let's see when we get to real lap times how that will affect. Obviously, he so successful on his debut to the Ferrari Challenge, on his debut to motor racing. Would have been a great shame if that meant that his day and his chances for the world final would be compromised that way. But 26 cars out on track, or almost 21 of the 26 currently out there.
And the good news is that Andrea Levy, who was the other driver that was called out, he's back out again as well. So the two cars that found the barriers, albeit at relatively slow speed, therefore the damage not too bad. Both drivers will be able to contest this qualifying session, which is good news, as you say, particularly for Zoe Scrimpias, having had such the stellar year that he has. As we watch the cars, I think that was Steve Cech going through there, the Ferrari of Rancho Mirage driver, Steve Cech. And I remind you that we have a mix of our European and North American competitors out there in this qualifying session. And dare I say this, Nico, dare I say it before I'll get slapped with a wet fish, but arguably, perhaps our European drivers might have a tad advantage in these conditions over our North American drivers, given the climatic situation is that we here in Europe are more likely to experience weather conditions like this, particularly, you know, in certain parts of Europe. I don't know. We will see. I'm just trying to think whether Montreal in the North American calendar this year, whether one of the races was wet or not. But there we are. We will see. We're watching Roland Hurtner and running the clock on Roland Hurtner right now. Roland certainly in these conditions took a bit of a gamble yesterday. It wasn't like this. It was a drying track. It was still damp, but Roland rolling the dice, if you will, and went out on slick tyres, which, had the race been moved 20 minutes, would have potentially worked, because towards the end of the race, if you were on slick tyres, you were on the better tyre. But certainly for the first 2/3 of the race, the wet weather tyres were the tyres to be on. That discussion doesn't even need to happen today.
No, Roland certainly has had the pace over the last few events that he was part, both in the dry and in the wet, for example, at the Nürburgring. As you said, tyre choice yesterday was not his friend, but now he can just focus, and the first 2 sectors he painted purple, and you can see he's coming up fairly quickly on some of the other cars, or one in that case.
Mutlutasev, I believe.
Mutlutasev, indeed. Also from our European competitors, and Roland Hörtner will very likely set the first time. And this strategy here in this fairly short qualifying is quite a difficult one, because you never know when the rain is going to pick up again and make better times impossible, or even cause another red flag and suspension.
Sure.
On the other hand, you don't want to push too early too much. You really have to be confident in the grip that you have, and with 2 minutes and 2 seconds, that's the first time on the board.
We often talk about bankers in terms of going out early on, banking a lap, so that at least you know you've got a lap on the board. That's what Roland Hörtner has done, and that's what Hassan Debussy is going to do. Hassan has been a wonderful addition to the Ferrari Challenge Europe Shalom contingent this season, and we first met him in the Winter Challenge, which took place this year at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi. Next year, Nico, we have the Corniche circuit to look forward to in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia when we go for the Winter Challenge there. Now, you can see on the graphics on the left-hand side of the screen, it's the top 6 that will go through to the Super Bowl competition. And at the moment, they would be Roland Hörtner, Gabe Harib, Jan Sandman, Steve Czech, Roger Monteforte, and Alvaro Ramos. Please expect that to potentially alter over the 16.5 minutes remaining of this qualifying session.
That is a fair bet, yes, absolutely. Not that we don't think any of them has the chance to make it through. However, I think there's going to be lots of shaking up over the rest of this session as Roland Hörtner tries to stay on a very quick trajectory and makes it past Hassan Debussy before he gets into the chicane. I don't think he lost too much time there. He's still building speed, and certainly over the first 2 sectors was a 1.5 seconds quicker. And now all of a sudden traffic becomes an issue, and I think, is that Jan Sandman?
I think it is.
Was trying to weave his way past other cars.
It was a good spot, because I think you're right, and he's coming up against the Alvaro Ramos car, is that?
Certainly the livery would fit. It might be one of our North American competitors. No, it is the Alvaro Ramos car, and so 2 of our European competitors chasing times, chasing each other. Roland Hörtner just improved on his previous best time, currently 5 seconds to the good of anybody else. Again, very, very provisional and preliminary stages. That being said, the first 10 minutes have ticked off the clock, and in these conditions, someone missing a braking point, landing in the gravel, is certainly not something that's unheard of. And so, again, the more reason just to put a banker in, as we see Jan Sandman have the time of Zoe Scrimpius on the board. And we pick up the very car that is already there in data, rounding the final 2 times. And there is a replay, and there is some of the fixing that was going on during the red flag time, you can only assume. And, you know, motorsport is a team effort.
And there you can see the results of the efforts then, as the splitter was taped up, ready for the resumption of the qualifying session. And, you know, actually, Nico, to be fair, the cars are not at the speeds they would be if we were in the dry weather conditions, and therefore the aero is perhaps not quite as critical today as it would be. Zoe Scrimpias proving that, having gone 2nd fastest. But Roland Hörtner, Nico, who's on something of a mission right now, is improving with every sector. Already he is P1, and I think Roland will deliver the first sub-2 minute time that we will see in this qualifying session, of which we have just under 14 minutes remaining. I remind you that the top 6 will be heading to the Super Bowl competition a little bit later on today. But Roland Hörtner with purple sector 1, purple sector 2. I predicted the first sub-2 minute time as he heads to break the timing beam now. Thanks, Roland. You delivered what I predicted, a 1:59.242. So we're going to see those times come down. There is his team, the Engstler Motorsport team with Gome Motorsport. And here is Shintaro Akatsu, who is currently sitting further down the order than he would like to. He's hoping that this is going to be a big, big improvement. He's done personal best through Sector 1 and Sector 2. The order currently is Hürtner, Sandman, Scheyer, Skripjas, Nunberg, Steve Czech just going ahead of Jeff Nunberg, and they are the top 6 currently.
Indeed, and our timing screen is ablaze with personal best times, so every driver who crosses the timing line now you kind of expect them to improve, because obviously they put those very first bankers in. As you can see, Shintaro Akatsu, he is still going, but Paolo Scudieri is going even quicker at this stage, so expect Paolo Scudieri to make a significant leap up the order. And indeed, he goes up
the
into
top 6.
P6 temporarily. Almost certain to mention, Zoe Skripjas, we see, has come into the pit lane. So all of the drivers, they put the first banker in, then they try to get a little bit more adventurous and try to just get a little bit closer to the edge, and obviously more water being dissipated from the track than is accumulating at the same time, certainly the way the rain is coming down right now. So expect the times to be quicker and quicker, and the very, very end of this session to be the quickest it can be.
I think you're absolutely right. I meant to do some research overnight, but I ran out of time, and that is to recall the fascinating figures from Pirelli with regards to the amount of the litres of water that the wet weather tyre, that was a hint, it's doing it now. The amount of water that the wet weather tyres dissipate per second, it's some extraordinary figure. Really it is. I mean, the wet weather tyres work so well. Jan Salmon is currently second fastest and has improved across Sector 1 and Sector 2. And here comes Jan Salmon then, who will head towards the timing beam. Now, his previous best time, a 2:02.072. And now he too joins the sub-2 minute club, he and Roland Hürtner, because Jan Salmon has delivered a 1:59.790. So he's just under 8 tenths adrift of Roland Hürtner, but quick nonetheless. Paolo Scudieri has bailed this lap. He's just taking it easy, trying to find some track space before he will go again. Eric Chung comes past, and at the moment, Eric Chung is not in the top 6. Zoe Skripjas is, so he's our European Coppa Shell AM champion. However, our Shell AM champion for North America, Roger Monteforte, is not yet in the top 6 for the Super Bowl. So improvements to come potentially from Roger Monteforte. Certainly an improvement from Eric Chung. He goes third fastest right now. So in the top 6, Hürtner, Sandman, Chung, Andreas Koenig into the top 6. Then it's Hassan Debussy and Gabe Harib, North American racer, finds himself P6 at the moment as Jan Salmon is looking for improvements. Sector 1 he did, Sector 2 not quite so. So just under 10 minutes of this session remaining. Credit to all the drivers, Nico, as Andreas Koenig improves a further place and puts it on P3 right now. It's Roland Hürtner, Jan Salmon, Andreas Koenig, Talal Scheyer, P4, Eric Chung, and Hassan Debussy knocking Gabe Harib and Zoe Skripjas out of the top 6 for the moment. What news you have for me?
No specific number, unfortunately, in the nick of time. So definitely with the 296 came a new generation of the Cintaro, which is the name of the rain tire produced by Pirelli for the Ferrari Challenge cars. It's 5% more than the previous one. That was the very quick information. It's a lot.
Yes,
that
it is a lot.
And that, yes, that is a scientific term. But 9 minutes remaining. Let us focus on the remainder of this session. You could be forgiven for thinking that those drivers at the very top front might be safe in terms of advancing to the Super Pole. Not so. We still have lots of purple and personal best times on our timing screen. So I think the mission for everybody is quick, stay quick, and stay in the top 6 at any moment in time, ideally, because a red flag could come at any moment, and that would really, really throw a spanner in the works. Zoe Skripjas not on a pole trajectory, and again, we don't award a pole position at the end of this, but certainly on a trajectory to move way up the order. Eric Chung, double winner here, is now up into P2 in a relatively safe position. So Skripjas through the chicane and now down to the Rivazza turns.
Yes, Zoe Skripias then looking for an improvement and needs an improvement to put himself into the top 6 to at least be in the Super Bowl competition a little bit later on today. Sector 1, better than anyone. Sector 2, a personal best. At the moment, Zoe Skripias is sitting way down the order of P14. So he needs to make that P15 now. He needs to find an improvement. He's got the Talal Shire car ahead of him. That will not cause him any problems whatsoever as he heads to break the timing beam now. Here is our European champion who goes P1, Nico, with a 1:58.815. And that wasn't with purple sectors across every sector. So he, the first driver to put it into the 58s, Nico. So good job done by Zoe Skripias. Stand by for responses to come from the likes of Roland Hertner and Eric Chung and Jan Salmon and Hassan Dabusi and Gabe Harib.
Yeah, Eric Chung is the one who is doing the best chasing, or actually chasing is almost a misnomer through 2 sectors. He is a second almost quicker. Now he comes up onto some traffic. I think that was just the right moment to come up on that traffic because he avoided having that during the chicane. And if he's quicker, maybe he can do it down the way into Rivazza. But I do think that the car in front of him, and I think it's Henrik Kamstrup.
I think it's Gabe Harib.
Oh, Gabe Harib, actually.
I think.
Is on a quick lap, so I don't think it's necessarily going to hinder him all that much. That being said, he's coming up towards the Gabe Harib car now, and maybe it did cost him some time, but it still looks like he is pushing on the way for an improvement. We've got 6.5 minutes remaining.
Roland Hertner has also put it into the 58s, and Jeff Nunberg has just improved, and Eric Chung, as you predicted, Nico, well, the times they come are tumbling down now because Eric Chung goes into the 57s.
Yeah, and the 56s are in almost within sight as Roland Hertner was so quick, but that was not the right way into the chicane. He slipped a little bit. He is still pushing. 6 minutes remaining. Comes up on the Zoe Skripias car. Zoe's not at top speed, so expect Roland Hertner to go by, I wanted to say relatively easy, but Zoyce, I don't think saw him, and
no.
That's a problem with the spray.
Yes.
You kick it up yourself, but it also massively reduces your visibility.
Yeah.
Even though there is a rearward-facing screen inside the car, but you know the spray gets in the way one way or the other. Roland Hertner, I think that compromised his lap significantly. It's a little bit of an improvement, not quite where it could have been.
No. So every driver will now be targeting the 157s. Who's in the drop zone, Nico? Talal Shire has just pushed Hassan Dabusi out as Jan Sandman goes quickest, Nico, with a 157.251. A full 4/10 quicker than Eric Chung, and we've got so much purple across the screen, including from this man, from Formula Racing, Henrik Kamstrup, with the metallic blue livery across his 296 Challenge car. Henrik Kamstrup knows how to pedal these cars, and Henrik Kamstrup, who at the moment is sitting P11, is on course for an improvement, hoping the final corners will be to his liking. He's got no traffic ahead of him to hinder him. This could be a big improvement from the Formula Racing driver then. Henrik Kamstrup, Sector 1, Sector 2, both purple sectors. Final 2 turns of 3, actually, because there is a kink on the start-finish straight before you get to the start-finish line. But Henrik Kamstrup has now been relegated to P12, but this lap should count for him. It's Jan Sandman, P1 at the moment. Here comes Henrik Kamstrup, who usurps Jan Sandman with a time in the 56s now. A 156.864. This is the 424 car of Steve Czech, and this is looking like a reasonable lap from Steve Czech. Personal best through Sector 1, personal best through Sector 2. You don't necessarily need every sector to be purple, but 2 of the 3 probably is what you would like. But Steve Czech, who's currently P19 in qualifying, he wants to get into the top 6. Actually, to be P1, apart from the confidence boost it would give you in this qualifying session, is actually not critical. As long as you're in the top 6, you're going to be in the Super Bowl shootout this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. And this almost feels as Jan Sandman retakes P1. It almost feels like a quali session where you could get into P1 with no time remaining and actually be out of the Super Pole, because there are so many drivers putting in one quick time after the other. Steve Czech is one of them. Paulo Scudieri is another. We have his time on our screen. We have Steve Czech in shot. He completes the lap from P19. He goes up to P7, so not
just
quite
out
in the top 6, but he can go again 2 more times actually. And there is Paulo Scudieri, and he comes up upon traffic, and
he's mired in traffic, isn't he?
And that obviously very unopportune. He at least has to try and get by before the start line and get good momentum out of this turn as to not compromise the next lap as well. But right now he's still stuck, so we will see what is the time here. It's not going to be a very, very good time, I feel, and indeed it's not an improvement. So with 2 minutes and 14 seconds, he's got 2 more attempts at this. So the question is, does he try and be very quick on this one, or really just use this lap to set himself up with track space to have one final bite at the cherry? Well,
that's a decision only he can make. He's got the Gabe Harib car ahead of him. Gabe Harib, of course, is in his own session, and he's currently sitting P14. There is Stefano Guy, who is driver coach to Paulo Scudieri. Hassan Dabusi, who's been very, very quick across this qualifying session. He's currently P13. The order at the moment would see through to the Super Pole contest Jan Sandman, Henrik Kamstrup, Roland Hurtner, Eric Chung, Zoe Skrimpias, and Jeff Nunberg. On the cusp, Steve Czech and Shintaro Akatsu. A lot can happen in the remaining 1 minute and 20 seconds, that's for sure. And even when the clock has counted down to 0, if you can cross the line just before the clock has counted down to 0, that next lap will still count. Shintaro Akatsu is improving, Nico.
Indeed, Shintaro Akatsu is improving. He was very, very quick the last time around, had some traffic which slowed him down in the final sector. He's approaching the Variante Alta chicane on the inside of the curb. The second curb, you really have to be careful in these conditions as to not be caught out by the curbs, because it gets really, really wet, especially once you get off the racing line and onto the painted part of the circuit. He's coming down towards Rivazza, and the television pictures actually lie a little bit. There is quite an inclination, there is quite undulation there, and if you just miss the braking point by very, very small margins under these conditions, you're right into the gravel.
Eric Chung goes top, but the margins are smaller now. 2 100ths quicker than Jan Sandman. That's all. So it's Chung from Sandman, from Kamstrup. Shintaro Akatsu does improve, Nico, and gets into the Super Pole. At the moment, Talal Shayer is improving as well. P14 at the moment, but Sector 1 is purple. We knew it was going to go all the way. The checkered flag is out, but if anyone is on a lap, the lap can still count, Nico.
I predict that the pole time will come with no time remaining. Henrik Kamstrup has completed his lap. He is P3. Will it be enough? Andrea Levy, P11. He's not going to be part of the Super Pole. Who is still out there? Chung, Sandman, Herdner, Zoe Skrimpias, and Talal Shayer. He's the lowest of those currently showing purple. Steve Noel finishes in P7, so good finish, but not a Super Pole slot for him.
Zoe Skrimpias puts in a 1:56.344.
Andreas Koenig just ducked into the top 6, but that's a very treacherous spot, especially with Talal Shayer coming up, Jan Sandman. Roland Hurtner up to P1, so Chung is still out there, but Talal Shayer, he's down in P18. This is the most significant lap because he could vault all the way into the top 6.
And he does it. P2 for Talal Shayer, and that drops Andreas Koenig out of the top 6. So it is Hurtner, Shayer, Skrimpias, Chung, Sandman, Kamstrup. At the moment, I say at the moment, there are drivers that are still out there. Mutlu Tarzev with personal bests across Sector 1 and Sector 2. Here comes Jan Sandman right behind him. I don't think he's... Eric Chung does it! Eric Chung goes P1. So that means, as far as I'm concerned, Nico, I think we have got our top 6 that will be going through to Super Pole. Is anyone doing a purple?
Not really, but Shintaro Akatsu, he is still pushing. He was a second down after the sector, and now he has completed the lap.
He's done.
Up into P8. There was a little bit of an improvement, but not for the top 6. So Mutlutazev completes his lap. He will go up to P17. Remember, all those from 7 down will start on the position which they qualify in. So Andreas König, while missing out on the top 6, still with a reasonable starting position. Thanks to the motorsport. Roland Hurtner, he is through. Reparto Corsa-Ram, they are the team who got Zoe Scrimpers the car fixed up to take part and be part.
Here is confirmation of the qualifying. Those that will be in Super Pole: Eric Chung, Roland Hurtner, Tal Al-Shayer, Zoe Scrimpias, Jan Sandman, and Henrik Kamstrup. Starting from P7 will be Andreas Koenig. Shintaro Akatsu will go from P8. Then it's Stephen Earl and Nurikatsu Shibata. They complete the top 10 from our qualifying session. And from numbers 11 through, we will see Gabe Harib, the Ferrari of Atlanta driver. He will be going from P11, but the top 6 we can see there. Hassan Tabusi, a really good quali. Well done, Hassan. He goes from P12. Paolo Scudieri, out of position, I would say. Jeff Nunberg, Guy Favre, Steve Jack, Andrea Levy, Mutlutazev, and Roger Monteforte, not where I would have expected him to be. Ahead of Josef Schumacher, Alvaro Ramos, Dana Goodwin, Louis Peruskia, Brian Waltersdorf, and Paul Lynn. Well, that was dramatic and exciting from Nico and from myself. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. Plenty going on just behind them as we head into turn number 1. Something of a pinch point. Max Micheli trying to make a move early on. Very, very good start, I believe, as we go through turn number 1 right now. Pushes himself through into P2 because he's got the inside line. He's world champion, Finali Mondiali champion.